Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are going to be talking about the Chapter Recognition and Awards Program. And I'd like to thank Penny Owens and Karen Main for joining me today. They are going to help with things that I might forget as we present, with anything that comes up in the chat, as well as presenting some ideas and thoughts from the judge's perspective when it comes to the award side of the program. So thank you, Karen and Penny, for being with us today as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. We are going to cover, and I just do like to recognize those who participated in the past. So we're going to talk about the 2021 and 2020 participants for both of the award applications. The purpose of both of these programs and our changes that we made, actually going into filling out the performance standard seal application and some new changes to that, submitting the outstanding award with some little changes, and then we're going to get some tips from our judges and from two of our past award winners submissions, some ideas that they have as well. So first here again, I wanted to acknowledge all of those that participated in 2021 in the performance standard seal. We had 29 chapters participate in the program, and we're very excited that that was an increase from the 2021 year. So applaud yourselves for the efforts and earning your seals, whether it was for the first time or if you've done it before. We also were excited that some of our chapters move up, which is what we are hoping to see from year to year as you evaluate your programs, that you may have gotten a gold or a silver and moved to platinum. So those are exciting things to see. And then these are our 2020 submissions that came in. Again, a lot of hard work and effort went into putting these, and we do want to make sure that those are recognized for those chapters that applied for this seal. In 2021, we had, let's see, I have my numbers written down here. We had 14 chapters to participate in the Outstanding Chapter Awards. As you can see, our winners are on the left in the 4 categories, as well acknowledging those chapters that submitted their best practices and programs in each one of those areas we wanted to recognize as well. And we'll talk about where all those submissions are being housed now and how they're being used. And again, to our 2020 Outstanding Chapter Award winners, down the left, winners and all those that participated. I shouldn't say just winners. I think everybody's a winner in some aspect of this, because you really are doing great things within your chapters, and just getting those out there and getting us published on the website for other chapters to look at and duplicate those efforts is certainly well appreciated. So let's talk about the program itself and the fact that we have 2 different layers here. And those of you that may be new, this is a program that came out in 2020 that got away from what we used to call Chapter of the Year, which was a looking of the whole kitchen sink of your chapter over a year, and can be up to 100 pages of documentation and supporting documentation, and found that that just really wasn't the best way to go about this. For one, for your volunteer time, and what in the end were we really looking to do with both of the Chapter of the Year and the Outstanding Awards. So we took it to a 2-tier approach. And the first was a chapter performance standard seals. And those are a standard in which we want our chapters to strive in. As NIGP and our ambassadors, we put together what we think are those best practices that NIGP chapters should be participating in. And then going through that application, you can be awarded a digital seal in one of the 4 categories there: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, based on your activity level. And this is really for you to earn that recognition of implementing best practices and what your chapter does on a day-to-day basis. If for anything else, if you're not going to submit, I encourage you to at least look over the form. This is a great thing for new boards to look at, maybe even year end, of strategic goals and long-term goals of things that chapters can be doing and striving for. Not just for earning a seal, but just as being and offering the best things for your members in a wide range of areas. So that's the first part of it. The second is the Outstanding Chapter Award. And this is where we recognize best practices in 4 different categories. And I'm going to go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. A winner is given a banner, just those big pop-up banners to each. I think, but the other big piece of this that we keep trying to stress is the outstanding award is not just the pop-up banner in the winner, but it's all of the applications that come in that are now sourced in through our online resource library as resource documents. So if you submitted and talked about your sponsorship or membership recruitment campaigns, those are now embedded into our online resource library for chapters to look at and to replicate. And this really does focus on specific programs that you work on outside of the standard seal, which is really a holistic approach of overall chapter activities that you do. Next, why would you want to participate? I think there's lots of reasons. I think for one is what you do on the local level, and that's promoting the profession. I think this is an opportunity to also to promote the efforts of your chapter and what you're doing to promote the profession. I think it's giving you the recognition you deserve as leaders and all the hard work for things that you implement and do. I think it's exciting to land on chapter website and see that seal that you have earned. I think that's great for promotion and marketing for new members, that you've been recognized by the institute, the chapter, the institute that you're a part of, for the level of efforts and activities and programs that you put in place for your membership. I think the other reason to participate, it's easy. I know we've talked about the Chapter of the Year Award for years now and all the time and effort that puts down, and we've cut from hundreds of pages and hundreds of hours of documentation to just a few hours, and the outstanding award is just 4 pages. So we've really simplified this process so that we get our chapters to participate, to get them to participate, unlike before where it was so much cumbersome and so much volunteer time to put those together. And again, I think adding those resources back into the chapter resource library really is key on submitting for those outstanding awards. We have 2 chapters here that quoted their participation, and I thought those were really standouts. And Utah talked about the opportunity to learn your chapter strengths and weaknesses. This goes back to me saying that performance standard seal is a great way for you to look at the areas that you may want to beef up your content, where you find, wow, membership, we are checking all the boxes, but advocacy and outreach, we may not be doing as much. And for Illinois, this is that time to showcase your strengths as a chapter and as an association and as a profession. So those are some good reasons to participate in the program. Any just general questions off the top? We see here about a PowerPoint. Yes, we will share all of that. The recording and the PowerPoint will be put in the webinar part of the chapter resource guide. Leaders in the Loop goes out Monday, and it'll have a link to that as well. So you'll be able to have all this to take back to whoever may be putting this together, or for you to go back over all the things that I talked about. So first, let's talk about the chapter performance standard seal. So the performance standard seal application is 57 questions. Those 57 questions are put into 4 different categories: chapter operations, membership, advocacy and outreach, professional development. You'll also see that those 4 categories also coincide with the outstanding award categories as well. So they are one and the same. Of those 57 questions, 43 are yes and no. Literally just yes and no. You do not have to provide any supporting documentation. You don't have to go through looking for the email blast or the flyer that you created for something. You simply answer yes or no. And 14 of those questions is a numeric response that will probably involve some of that time of getting data of whether your membership reports, how many volunteers you have, things like that, in which you'll have to do a numeric response. To be eligible to apply for the seal, you have to have submitted all your chapter required reporting forms. We do reserve the right to audit your submission, and I will say I have done that over the last couple of years, and it normally is because a numeric response seems off to me. So I actually has helped the chapters because they didn't calculate it right. They were using different numbers that maybe came in on something else. So it really is a chance for me to just do some checks and balances, and it actually helps the chapter in getting the right answer. And everything must be based on 2021. We're not looking for activities prior to 2021. You may have started a program, but the activity may be really happening in 2021, and that's what you want to talk about. So when you're putting the seals together, we'll talk about it more about documenting that. But when you answer this performance standard seal, put it in the lens of just last year. So for those 14 questions in which you have to have a numeric response, I can provide documentation that will help you answer those questions. So some of the questions talk about attendance at NIGP events. So I'll be able to give you a report of forum and leadership summit of those who attended. So you'll be able to check that against your roster. I will be able to give you a listing of all conference and webinar speakers. We ask a question about how many of your members speak at NIGP events. And I will be giving you a listing of all NIGP volunteers and councils, committees, and boards. So there's 3 of the questions that I can provide the answers, the data for you to answer those questions. So anything about the application here, just the requirements to submit, not too difficult. So here is the application, and the application is going to look new as far as that it's an Excel document. So those of you who submitted last year, it was in a PDF or a Word, I think. And when you filled out the cells, everything got formatted incorrectly and it became ugly when it was submitted sometimes. So we've put it in an Excel document. This allows me to do calculations, but I think what it does is it makes it even easier for you all to fill out. So I did 2 screenshots here of parts of the application. And as you can see here, when you click into your response column into that cell, yes and no pops up. And actually it pops up even with the words yes and no and these little boxes to the left of it, that you just click on it and it populates the field for you. So that way there's no question of how you should be answering it. You are forced to answer a yes or a no. You can't leave one blank, but that makes it very clear and easy on how to respond to those. The one at the bottom, when you click on it, it'll say percent or number. So that way, you know, if you have to give like a total number of things, one of the questions is total as of your attendance at Chapter Academy. If you have attended for 7 years, you put in 7. Most of these are looking for a percentage, your percentage of members who are volunteers, your percentage of members who participate in events, things like that. So again, it's very easy for you to know what you need to be filling these in, and they are required, whether it's a yes or no has to be in, or a negative or a positive or a 0 number for percentage. This last column on the right in red text is going to give you what we're really looking for you to answer those questions, to be able to answer numerically correct or yes or no. I do encourage and remind you that when you look at this application, you'll see this application first, but there are 2 tabs at the bottom of the Excel sheet, and they talk about how to fill the form out. It's just an explanation of the application itself. So make sure you click on those should you have any questions. So this makes it very easy to fill out the application and no questions of what should go into what field. So let's talk about how we score these. So it is pretty simple here at the basics at the beginning. If you answer yes, you get 1 point. If you answer no, you get 0. So very, very straightforward. Those 14 questions that require you to put in a numeric response, we round those to whole numbers, we rank them from high to low, and then we divide them into quartiles. And from those quartiles, you'll get assigned a point for that quartile in which you land. So if you are in the 50th percentile and above, you're going to get 2 points. The reason we do this allows for the discrepancies of large chapters versus small chapters. We've done a lot of data mining to make sure that this truly does work, and it does. This gets away from that thinking that the most active chapter, the biggest chapter, would always be getting 4 points, and that is not correct. I'm going to give an example, and Karen, I'm going to use your chapter, Tampa Bay, kind of in the middle in a large chapter. They give 35 to 40% of their budget dollars to scholarships. That really is a 4-pointer. But when you get into a chapter that has 500 or 600 members, you think, well, they have the most members, so they're going to get the highest points. And that's not the way that works. It really levels your playing field. And then you can see from you look back at who's won those performance standard seals, that platinum level is a mixture of extra large, medium, small, and large chapters. The same with those that are in the platinum level. I mean, in the bronze level, you have all sizes. You have extra large chapters that earn that as well. So this is really that leveling field. What we changed new from this year is the last 2 years, we use that same quartile concept to award the seals. And we started to think about that's really not how we wanted to do this. We did not want this to be a competition of who submitted that year. That's one of the reasons we got away from chapter of the year. We did not want chapters to feel that, oh, I can't compete against an X, Y, or Z, so I'm not going to submit. So what we changed for this year is that for your earning of your seal, you have to earn a minimum number of points. So it has nothing to do with who was submitted. It really has to do with how many of those check boxes that you get. And then that way you can earn your seal based on that point system. So we are really happy to implement that new so that there is not that competitive piece to earning a seal. It really is competing against yourself and what your chapter's done and hasn't done. So questions about the point system, does that make sense to everybody? Okay. If not, I'm going to move on to the outstanding awards. So as I said before, our outstanding awards are in 4 categories. Again, these are the same 4 categories that break out the performance standard seal. We have operations, and that is what it is, your operating process behind the scenes, your policies, procedures, budget, bylaws, engagement with NIGP, all of that stuff is considering your operations. Membership award is how does your chapter market membership benefits? What resources do you have for your members? And how is your membership retention and growth? The next is advocacy and outreach, and this is practices or operations that your chapter has demonstrated to be an effective advocate for your members, your profession. This can be special outreach that you do with college and universities, reverse trade shows, anything in which you're out in the public promoting the profession. And last is professional development. And that really is, what are you doing to go above and beyond to give your members education outside of just NIGP? We encourage you to host courses, but what are you all doing to create monthly engagements, brown bags, round tables, your own conferences as far as professional development? So the criteria for this is, first, you've had to have submitted the standard seal to apply for an outstanding award. So that has to be submitted as well. Here we talk again about the programs must be based and occurring in 2021. So when you start to talk about your programs, you need to make sure that you do keep in mind that you're talking about when they were implemented and the dates that were used. So we're not judging or guessing on whether it was years before, but we really want the activity that happens in 2021. You can submit into up to 2 categories, and I do encourage you to do that. Not only does that give you a better chance of winning in one of those categories, again, that just doubles our population of stuff in the resource guide. The PDF document, I'm going to show it to you, can be no longer than 4 pages, and you use the application provided. That's the change, but I want to talk to you that in a second. And the submission must fall and answer the scoring criteria. I know Penny and Karen are going to talk about this, but outside of what used to be chapter of the year, we are not looking for everything that you do in professional development. If that's the category you're going to pick in, we want you to really highlight only 1 or 2 programs and talk in great detail about them. We want you to describe your program using text, photos, links, embedded documents. Don't just rely on photos and links. We want you to tell us a lot of stuff, and we'll talk in that on the next slide about that, but really pick those 1 or 2 areas in which your chapter really excels. So the 4 areas that we're going to judge your submissions on is that detail of explaining those programs so that a chapter could understand, adapt, and replicate. So again, not like just throwing all 20 things that you do in membership recruitment, but talking about that you did a membership recruitment campaign, and this is how it happened. These are the people that you involved in it. This is how many you called. This is how many joined. We want all of that kind of information. The next is talk about those outcomes or results. So if that is the example, talk about how many people became members from this campaign that you did. And then talk about proof of success. Not all pieces of it might have worked. You may have found that cold calling didn't work and you wish you had done X. So we want to talk about that as well. Also about the uniqueness of approach or innovation, either new to you or to other chapters. So talk about what maybe brought this about that makes it different than how you've done things before. What made you think outside the box to do whatever program or how to enhance it? And lastly, this is where an area where chapters really didn't hit the mark on getting full scores for submissions is to talk about your lessons learned. It's okay to talk about if pieces of it failed or examples of how you would do it differently for next time. Again, the purpose is for another chapter to read this, and not having a membership recruitment campaign, being able to adapt or replicate it for themselves at their chapter. So talk about the lessons you learned, the debrief maybe you went through if it was a reverse trade show and the new things you tried at it. We want to hear it all. So within those 4 criteria, you are scored or can score up to 25 points. So that means you can get a total of 100 points if you have the most outstanding application. And this is how we rank those scores within that 25 points. A chapter thinks 0 to 7 is poor, 8 to 13 satisfactory, and so on. So that's how you earn your points. Let me show you visually how it's going to look. So it looks like the same application that you've done before, but it's a PDF fillable. So what you have now will be 4 boxes in which you will answer 4 of those scoring areas. So as you can see here, we want you to explain the program, event, and best practice, and you can get 25 points in this category. The next one is to share outcomes and results, up to 25 points. So within these boxes, they will expand. You can embed documents, put your photos, do whatever you want to that submission. But this way, it's clearly stated where you get your points and to make sure you can get your max points. So if you don't fill in a whole box, you know that you're not going to get any points for that. So I hope that makes sense. And we wanted to make it really clear because our judges were looking at them, and one of the areas that they would judge on is outcomes and results, and nobody would talk about it. So you wouldn't get points for that. So we were hoping laying it out this way, you had a greater understanding of really seeing how we were going to give those points to each one of those sections. So questions about that application. Again, it is the same. This criteria hasn't changed in 2 years. It's not new. We just laid it out a little bit differently to make sure you could maximize your points. Okay. So the last piece of this that I keep pushing is this adding to the resource guide, if you will. So I want to show you how we're rolling those out after the fact. So I've picked 3 sections here, and as you can see, they're identified by these purple boxes or purple tags. And that means that they were submitted through the outstanding award process, and they may have won the banner, they may not have, but this is where you're going to find them starting to get embedded, and where we talk about Columbia is in here because we're talking about their committee structure. So that falls under governance, and mentoring programs. These 3 chapters fall under that. So this is what's exciting, is that this stuff will keep getting added into our resource guide. We'll periodically clean out if things are outdated or you've updated your program, things like that. But this is what's exciting to see, is sharing with all the other chapters the things that you are doing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over real quickly. Karen and Penny each have a slide on what tips they have. So before they get into this, I want to kind of give everybody an idea of how we do this when it comes to scoring and judges. So all our chapter ambassadors do score the outstanding awards. The performance standard seal are just equations and numbers. So that's stuff that I do. So for the outstanding award, I am very, very particular about who judges and who looks at what. So I want you to know there is a lot of conflict of interest that has been removed from this. Penny will not evaluate anybody in her area, will not even look at an application. So she stays completely neutral from any chapter she's visited or been a part of. I don't look at them. And why I say this is I think you need to use myself and your ambassadors as resources. At any time you can go to your ambassador and say, hey, have I hit the mark? Do I need to be more detailed here? Because Penny or Karen won't look at that application. And we want to be able to help you put the best foot forward and the best application forward. So please keep that in mind and use them as resources, because they won't touch your application. I actually don't even look at them until all the scoring is done. So I can also be a resource to say, you know, nope, you need to beef this up. No, I think this looks really good. So please take advantage of using the 18 of them and myself to review anything, or say, Jen, is this right? Penny, is this right? Nope. We'll focus you somewhere else. If we need to go in a different direction. So the first one I think is Karen. So Karen, you want to talk about what tips you have and over your experience looking at the last 2 years of the Outstanding Awards.
Yes, be my pleasure. So as you see in the first bullet point is to read. Just everything that Jen said, make sure you read your application thoroughly and totally understand it so that you can fill it out properly. As Jen mentioned, no response. That was just as a judge the past few years, lessons learned was a big issue. There would be no response. And there were not boxes so much in the past year. So I like the way they've redesigned this application so that, you know, if your box is empty, that's going to be 0 points. So I saw some really dynamic programs that were put into an application, but they didn't put lessons learned. And it was so disappointing to me because I knew they had a great program to offer, and I could not give them any points in that category. Repetitiveness. So many times in each of the areas, it would be the same response over and over and over again. You know, don't let the judges read the same reply. Mix it up a little bit, you know, read the exact category, because lessons learned are way different than outcomes and results. So make sure your wording is different and don't repeat the same thing over and over. Proof it. So I would suggest that you have a procurement professional other than those who are filling out the application review it. And what about a non-procurement professional, somebody in management? You know, there's only so many categories, and especially reading the boxes, the type in the box. Yes and no questions. All right, yeah, that's not too hard. But what you're typing in the boxes, let them look at it from a grammatical standpoint, a spelling standpoint. Were you repetitive? Did it make sense? Did it really apply to the answer? And, you know, even though there's no points for being grammatically correct or alphabetically correct, you know, in your mind, if you get something, a document, and it doesn't look good because there's too many typos and the grammar stinks, that's going to stick in your mind as far as scoring goes. So I would suggest if you get that from both a procurement standpoint and a non-procurement standpoint. And lastly, with the text that you put in the boxes, don't put 50 different links in one text box. Number one, that just for the judges to have to keep clicking on links and links and links, it's not really explaining your program and what you did. So don't rely solely on the pictures and the links. So one of the applications I had last year, it just kept giving links to all their programs, and they didn't put it into a verbal text or reading text for me to read. And it just really didn't explain the story well. So you want to give that story and then use the pictures and links to add something extra to it, or, you know, show that picture of the outcomes and results, you know, that you did this great thing, and here's a picture of the group of us together that we did, you know, something to that effect. And I think that sums up my tips.
If I can just add to that last one, I think really your embedded links should just be supporters. I think they support text that you type up to prove or to show of something that you talked about, but don't use that to tell, I think to Karen's point, to tell your story.
Yeah.
Put it all in text and words first, and then go back and think, okay, this is a great place for me to share this document here. I would do that links after the fact, not while you're writing it. That way, I think you rely too much on that. And again, you want somebody to be able to print this out and replicate it. those links may go, oh, that might be bad, and then they can't use that or rely on it as a good resource for a program.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's a
Karen.
great point, Jen. Thank you.
Penny, how about your feedback?
Oh, mine are very similar in some ways, of course. And you've kind of mentioned this, Jen, but as Jen mentioned on the outstanding awards, focus on one or two efforts probably at most for the basis of your application. And the reason we say that is if you give us 5 different things that you've done, you're not going to have the bandwidth to be able to put enough information in there so we know how good that program was or what the outcomes were and how to replicate that for somebody else. Providing the detail on your outstanding allows us, as I just said, to replicate. That's one of the great things about this program, I think, and I think about our entire chapter structure and having Jen as our relations manager, is that we share this information with chapters all over the country and in Canada so we all can replicate each other. I mean, we're all procurement people. We plagiarize all the time. We steal RFPs. So, that's what's great about this program. So be sure that you can explain it well enough so that we do understand how great it is and how to replicate that. We've talked about, outcomes. For me, as I think Karen's mentioned too, that was one of the frustrating things I found with applications is that, boy, it sounds like a great program, but I don't know if it worked. And so make sure you do include that. As Jen was talking about the links, please don't send us on a search and find mission to have to click 50 links to go find out about your program. Make sure you detail it in your text so that we can read through it pretty easily. And so again, other chapters have that as a resource. And apply. Absolutely. If you don't exceed, keep trying, succeed, keep trying. And if nothing else, applying for one of these is a great guide for kind of your strategic plan for your chapter. It can give you an idea of, hey, we're more awesome than we thought we were, or hey, we've got work to do, or here's some great ideas of how we can do things. And one thing I would just add, we all work with RFPs all the time and bid documents. Think of it like that. We are those people who are used to evaluating. So the judges kind of think that way. We're looking at our criteria and seeing if you're hitting the marks in all of those.
One thing else I want to add here is again, just changing the mindset a little bit. You may sit back and think, oh, we have this reverse trade show when we do it every year. It's no big deal. I see it as a big deal because you actually there's a start and an end. There's income, there is sponsorships, there's flyers you print, there's invitations that go out, there's people that participate, volunteers. All of that is a program. And I hear on these calls, there's success if you make any type of plus dollars on a reverse trade show, $20,000 to $30,000, $12,000, whatever it might be. So really don't start thinking of, I don't know that we have, something outstanding or outrageous. Almost every program you do that there is a beginning and an end is a program that another chapter can replicate. And it may be very similar. Most of you are doing reverse trade shows, but somebody's going to read that. And there are 2 things different that you do that is going to be a light bulb for another chapter that's going to excel their program, and same for you. So don't always look at it as that I've got to have the biggest and best and it's the greatest thing out there. It's just your day-to-day activities that you all as volunteers put your heart and time into that we want to hear about. So think of it as just on your day, take 1 or 2 of those activities that your chapter does that you have a formal program around and write it out, write an SOP for it. It's exactly what I'm looking for, of how it begins and how it ends and all of that good stuff in the middle.
Jen, can I add one more
Sure.
tip that I didn't think just came to me now? You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we didn't focus on it too much. Please be sure to focus on activities that were in 2021. I remember reading some applications last year that said, so let's go back. It was 2020. Oh, because of COVID, we're going to start having hybrid meetings in 2021. Well, no, it was an application for 2020. So I couldn't give you any points for thinking about it and starting to talk about it. So make sure when you fill out your application, it's programs that were it could have even been started in 2020, but executed during 2021 to where you can put the focus, the detail, the outcomes, describe it, and give us the lessons learned as well. So that part of it has to have happened in 2021.
Good point, Karen. Thank you. I have two sets of tips here from two different chapters that submitted last year. So first that came from Sampo, and I think they're talking a lot about the things that Penny and Karen just talked about, and that's quantifying your accomplishments. And they just showed or giving an example of how they did that in professional development. And I also think it shows you how detailed we're looking for you to get. It talked about credit hours and measuring those versus maybe what you've given in the past and how you've exceeded or gone over your number of attendees, maybe unique attendees, the value of the training offered, maybe the feedback, the surveys you've gotten from your members. So these are the kind of details that we're looking for when you go into that results oriented. And those are the things that Sampo pointed out as well. Oregon talked about just the group of people that put it together, and they did it as a team approach. And whether we were back in the day of chapter of the year or this together, I certainly think this is something that can be divided up. Even the performance standard seal that your membership chair can answer most of those membership questions. Don't rely on just one person. They did it as a team. Their past president, vice president, and current president, which makes really good sense. And then they filtered out to those committee chairs for those specific content or numbers that they needed. They assigned, asked questions and assigned deadlines. And again, I think we go to that proofreading and having those new set of eyes on that. So quickly, I'm going to talk about some resources here for you. And I think what everybody wants to know is when they're all due, and that's May 23rd of this year. Here at that link at the top, you're going to find the two separate applications. That is different from last year. They were all in one document, and this time they're in two separate applications. And I also wanted you to be able to see direct links to the outstanding award submissions over the last year or two that checked a lot of those boxes that we were talking about, maybe not all of them to the fullest, but scored in those higher rankings for those outstanding awards and what we're really looking for. There's two other things that I want to be able to offer you. One is one-on-one time. We talked about that. I talked about going to your ambassadors to ask questions and say, you know, Penny, do you think I have this right? Am I detailed enough? But I also want to encourage you to schedule one-on-one calls. That can be with myself. That can be with your ambassador, with both of us. We can go over your past submissions if you want to know where you scored or how you can get higher points from last year. Even if you want to sit down with myself and an ambassador and actually go through the performance standard seal and take an hour and answer all of your yes, no questions together. We would have over half of the application done sitting in an hour, and then you could take back pieces of that to do with your board and what you needed numbers. So we really are encouraging everybody to participate and trying to be supportive and helpful to make sure this gets done. It is not a difficult, the seal is not a difficult application to put together. So we want to be able to support that as much as we can. Contact information for myself, Penny and Karen, as well as the link to your ambassadors. I'm assuming most of you have had some kind of communication with them or know who they are. So encourage you to reach out to them as well if you want to do some one-on-ones. So that was our presentation. Can anybody think of any questions, comments, concerns, maybe something we didn't cover? Susan asked about, do the events need to have occurred in 2021 or 2022? 2021. So this application is based on everything of January 1 through December 31st of 2021. To Karen's point, you may have a program that you started and implemented in the year prior, but the nuts and bolts of it happened in 2021. And that's fine. You can talk about that. You know, in the fourth quarter, you guys started to talk strategically, and this is what you wanted to do and to create the program. But at 2021, you launched it. So then that's when you would talk about it. So Hillary asked for the performance seal, can you let us know what number items on the form we can contact you for to get information? Yes, I'd have to go back through the application, but I believe there's 4 questions in which those 3 documents that I can provide. You'll know them very specific because it'll ask how many of your members attended an NIGP virtual conference. So those you'll know, we can give the reports. Hillary, if you just want to send me an email and I can send those all to you. Again, anybody who wants those, email me and I have all the reports ready to go. 2 of those Excel documents have multiple tabs, so make sure you look at the bottom for all the tabs. But those are going to be able to help you because that's the information we house, and then you can check that against your membership to see who belongs. It's all sorted by state. I hope that answers, Hillary. Any other questions? Comments? For the chapter budget on the application, did we put the budget or the change in budget from previous year? You're going to put in what you put in for your 21 budget, not the previous year. If we don't have any questions, I think I'll leave you with just a couple things. Again, please use myself and your ambassadors as resources. Please email me for those forms to help it easier to fill out some of those numeric questions in which you have to do a percentage. Ask those. I hope I'm getting emails right now from everybody and I'll send them off to you. Encourage you to please sit down and look at that performance standard seal, even if you don't submit, as a way of doing a checks and balances on the health of your chapter and areas that you want to improve on or work in. But please don't hesitate to reach out to us before that deadline and get those applications in. Thank you guys for your time today. Appreciate it. See you, everybody.
Hi, thank you.
Bye.